AITA for refusing to give up my wedding venue to my sister, even though she needs it more. So I, 28F, got engaged to my fiancé Daniel, 30M, last year after being together for 5 years. We've been saving and planning carefully because we wanted a really special wedding, but nothing over the top. We booked a beautiful lakeside venue about 9 months ago for next May. It's not a massive wedding venue or anything, but it's incredibly picturesque. It's this little retreat with wooden decks, a garden for the ceremony, and a reception hall overlooking the water. It was perfect for us because we're both pretty outdoorsy. The venue was booked solid almost a year in advance, so getting our date was pure luck. We were thrilled. We sent out save the dates a few months ago, already paid about 70% of the total cost, and lined up our vendors. Everything was going smoothly until my younger sister Emma, 26F, got engaged 2 months ago. Emma and I are close, but she's always been impulsive. She and her fiancé Kyle, 27M, have been together for only about a year, and their engagement was a whirlwind. They got engaged after a trip to Greece, and from the moment she came home, she's been in full-blown wedding mode. The problem started when she called me one evening saying she had found the perfect venue, and it turned out to be the same one Daniel and I booked. When she realized it was already reserved for the same date, she was furious. Apparently, she'd already told a bunch of people that she was planning a spring lakeside wedding and even described it in detail. She accused me of stealing her dream wedding because I knew she loved lakes and rustic decor. I reminded her that I'd booked the place months before she even got engaged. I thought that would be the end of it, but she didn't drop it. Over the next week, my parents started bringing it up too. They said Emma was devastated and that I should consider moving my wedding or letting her have the venue since she's younger and she doesn't handle stress well. They said I could find somewhere else since I still had a few months to go. I laughed at first because I thought they were joking, but they weren't. My mom even called Daniel behind my back, asking if he would be open to compromising for Emma's sake. He told her absolutely not. We've paid deposits, vendors are booked, and our invites have gone out. That's when things got really messy. Emma called me crying, saying I was ruining her wedding and that she couldn't possibly imagine getting married anywhere else. She said that she and Kyle couldn't afford to wait a year because his parents were getting older and she wanted them there. I told her I understood, but it wasn't fair to ask us to throw away all our plans. The next day, my mom came over and started showing me listings for other venues just in case I changed my mind. I told her she needed to stop, but she said, family should come first, and you know how fragile Emma can be. For context, Emma has a history of making everything about her. Birthdays, holidays, even my college graduation ended with her crying because she felt ignored. My parents always caved to her because she's sensitive. I finally snapped and told my mom that if Emma wants the venue so badly, she can wait for it to become available next year or find somewhere else like an adult. My dad called later that night, saying I was being selfish and cold-hearted and that I was letting a venue ruin family bonds. For a while, I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was being harsh. But then Emma went nuclear. She made a long Facebook post about family betrayal and how some people don't care about other people's happiness. She didn't name me directly, but it was obvious. Half her friends started commenting things like, "You deserve your dream day, girl," and anyone who can't see that is jealous. My aunt called me to say Emma was in tears and refusing to eat. Apparently, she and Kyle drove to the venue and begged the coordinator to switch the booking. Thankfully, the staff refused, saying the contract was non-transferable without my permission. When I found that out, I was mortified. I called her and said she'd crossed a major line. She yelled that I was choosing a party over my sister's happiness. Now my family is divided. My parents and Emma's fiancé's side think I'm being unreasonable and should just reschedule. My cousins and Daniel's family think Emma is completely out of line. To make things worse, my parents are threatening not to attend my wedding if I don't make peace with Emma, which apparently means giving her the venue. My mom even said, "You'll regret it when you see your sister's wedding pictures and realize how beautiful it could have been." I told Daniel maybe we should consider eloping to avoid all this drama, but he's furious that I'm even entertaining the idea. He said, "This is classic Emma manipulation, and that if we give in, she'll keep walking all over me for the rest of my life. He's right. This has been a pattern forever. But part of me still feels guilty because she really does get emotional easily, and I don't want to destroy my relationship with my parents over this. They've started freezing me out, barely responding to my texts. Meanwhile, Emma keeps posting quotes about toxic family members and betrayal. I love my sister, but I'm honestly exhausted. Every time I think about the wedding, all I can picture is the argument. I want to be happy about marrying the man I love, not worrying that half my family will boycott it. So now I'm torn. I've already paid thousands of dollars, and moving everything would be a logistical nightmare, not to mention unfair. But the guilt and pressure from my parents are eating at me. Will I really be the asshole for refusing to give up the venue to my sister, even though it's apparently her dream wedding spot? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to take my sister's kids to Disneyland after she called me selfish for not having children. I, 32F, have an older sister, Kelly, 36F, who has 3 kids, twin boys, 8, and a daughter, 5. We used to be really close when we were younger, but our relationship has gotten strained over the last few years because she's been, well, kind of condescending about my lifestyle. I don't have kids. I don't plan to. I like my job, my small apartment, and my quiet weekends. Apparently, this is unacceptable to Kelly. Every time we see each other at family gatherings, she makes little digs like, "You'll understand when you have kids," or, "It must be nice having so much free time." I usually just let it go, because arguing with her never changes anything. Last year, I got promoted at work and decided to treat myself to a solo trip to Europe. It was my dream trip, Italy, France, and the UK, for 3 weeks. I shared photos on social media, and Kelly texted me something like, "Wow, imagine having the money and time to just travel whenever you want. Must be nice not having responsibilities." I ignored it. Fast forward to this year. I've been saving for a few years now to take a small group, my best friend, my boyfriend, and my parents, to Disneyland for a long weekend. My parents have never been, and they're both retired now. I wanted to do something special for them since they always supported me. A few weeks ago, during a family dinner, I was talking to my mom about our plans when Kelly overheard. She got all excited and said, "Oh, the kids are going to lose their minds. They've been begging to go to Disneyland for years." I froze and said, "Oh, this trip is just for me, Mom, Dad, and a couple of friends." Kelly looked shocked. "Wait, what? You're going to Disneyland and not taking the kids?" I said, "It's a trip I've been planning for my parents for a while. It's going to be more of a chill adult trip." She scoffed. "Chill? It's Disneyland. It's literally made for kids." I tried to explain that I wanted to go at my own pace, ride what I want, and not have to plan everything around nap schedules and meltdowns. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're so selfish sometimes. You don't even understand how much joy it would bring them. You have no idea what it's like being a parent." My dad changed the subject, but Kelly was clearly upset. The next day, she texted me this long message saying she couldn't believe I would exclude her kids when I don't even have a family of my own to spend money on. She said I was hoarding my income for myself while her kids miss out on things they'll remember forever. I told her flatly that it's my money, my vacation, and I don't owe anyone a trip. She sent a voice note basically saying I'd never understand what love and sacrifice really mean, and that she pities me for not having a family. That honestly hurt. I love her kids, but I'm tired of being made to feel like something's wrong with me for not having children. I stopped responding for a few days. Then my mom called and said Kelly was disappointed, but that I should maybe take one of the kids just to make peace. I laughed because, what? I'm supposed to chaperone my nephew to Disney by myself while she stays home? Mom said she thought Kelly just felt left out. But I think it's more than that. I think Kelly resents that I have freedom she doesn't. A few days later, I posted a photo of the Disney tickets on Instagram, just excitement, not aimed at anyone, and Kelly commented, "So happy for you. Hope you can manage without real responsibilities for a few days. I deleted her comment and finally texted her saying, if you can't be happy for me, don't say anything at all. She immediately called me and started crying. She said I've changed and that I've forgotten what family means. She said she's overwhelmed with the kids and that seeing me take our parents on a fun trip without including her children felt like a slap in the face. I told her I understood she was stressed, but that doesn't make it my problem. She said, if you had kids, you'd understand that family comes before everything. I replied, that's exactly why I don't have kids, so I can choose what comes first in my life. She hung up. Now my brother-in-law texted me saying Kelly's been crying and that the kids are upset because they overheard her talking about Disneyland and now think they're not good enough to go. He said I broke their hearts. I honestly feel bad for the kids, but I didn't tell them anything. Kelly did. She's the one who told them I was going to Disneyland in the first place. I love my niece and nephews, and if I ever plan a kid-centered trip, I'd absolutely take them. But this particular trip was about giving my parents a fun experience, not managing 3 small children. The rest of my family is divided. My mom thinks Kelly overreacted, but wishes I'd just let it go. My dad's firmly on my side and told me to enjoy the trip. My aunt said she kind of gets where Kelly's coming from, since she's probably just exhausted and jealous, but that I shouldn't rub my freedom in her face. I didn't think I was rubbing anything in. I just planned a vacation. But now I'm wondering if posting about it online was a bad move. Maybe it did seem a little insensitive, even though that wasn't my intention. My boyfriend says Kelly's projecting her resentment and that I shouldn't change my plans just to soothe her ego. He also pointed out that Kelly has gone on multiple family trips where I wasn't invited, beach houses, camping weekends, etc. She never invited me because you wouldn't like it without kids. The irony of that isn't lost on me. Still, I feel guilty. The kids didn't do anything wrong. They're sweet, and I don't want them thinking I excluded them on purpose. I just don't think I should have to compromise my plans to make my sister feel better about her life choices. So, AITA for not taking her kids to Disneyland and for standing my ground, even though it's caused a huge family rift. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she replaced my daughter as her flower girl, because she didn't fit the aesthetic. I, 34F, have a younger sister, Lila, 29F, who has always been the golden child of our family. She's beautiful, ambitious, and the kind of person who seems to have everything perfectly put together. My parents have always adored her, and while I love my sister, I've spent most of my life living in her shadow. When Lila got engaged last year to her fiancé, Jason, 31M, the whole family went into wedding overdrive. It's a massive event. 200 guests, black-tie dress code, a destination vineyard, the works. Lila is the first one in the family to have a big wedding, so my parents have been heavily involved, financially and emotionally. Early on, Lila asked my daughter Emma, 7, to be her flower girl. Emma was so excited. She loves her Aunt Lila and talked nonstop about her dress, petals, walking down the aisle, everything. I was genuinely touched that Lila wanted Emma to be part of her day, especially since she doesn't have many close friends with kids. Fast forward about 6 months. Last month, Lila hosted a bridesmaid brunch to finalize details. I'm not a bridesmaid. She said she wanted her closest friends, which stung a little, but I let it go. During the brunch, she showed everyone her mood board for the wedding. It was very specific. Muted neutrals, beige and blush tones, elegant minimalist, everything. A week later, she called me and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about Emma." My stomach dropped because her tone was weirdly formal. She told me she'd been working with her wedding planner, and they realized Emma might not fit the aesthetic. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said Emma's look didn't match the vision. When I asked what that even meant, she hesitated before saying, Emma's curly red hair will really stand out in photos. It's just not cohesive. I was speechless. My daughter's hair? That's the problem? I told her that was ridiculous, and she backpedaled, saying it was just a creative decision, and that she didn't mean it personally. She said she was going to ask Jason's niece, who is 5 and has long, straight blonde hair, to be the new flower girl because she fits the palette better. I told her if she replaced Emma, I wouldn't be attending the wedding. She got defensive and accused me of making drama over something superficial. I said she was the one being superficial. She hung up crying and later sent me a long text saying she loved Emma, but that this was her one special day and she didn't want me to ruin it with negativity. A few days later, my mom called me, furious. Apparently, Lila had told her that I threatened to boycott her wedding over a misunderstanding. When I explained what actually happened, my mom said, "Honey, you know how Lila is about details. Just let her have her perfect day." I told her it wasn't about details. It was about rejecting a 7-year-old for how she looks. My mom sighed and said I was overreacting and that Emma was too young to even care, which is completely untrue. Emma cried when I told her she wouldn't be the flower girl anymore. She kept asking if she did something wrong. After that, I stopped responding to wedding-related group chats and didn't RSVP. Lila eventually texted me a few weeks ago, saying she hoped I'd come around because family means everything, but I just couldn't bring myself to go. The wedding was last weekend. I stayed home with Emma while my husband went fishing with friends. Apparently, the wedding was beautiful, and everyone gushed about it on social media. I saw the photos. Everything looked like it came out of a magazine, including the new flower girl, perfectly matching Lila's aesthetic. Now my entire family is mad at me. My mom said I embarrassed them by not showing up. My dad said I was punishing Lila for being successful. My brother called me petty and said no one cares about a flower girl anyway. Even some extended relatives sent me texts implying I made a mountain out of a molehill. But here's the thing, I don't regret missing it. I can forgive a lot, but excluding a child, my child, because she doesn't fit a color scheme, that crosses a line. Emma is sensitive and sweet, and she already struggles with self-esteem because kids at school tease her about her hair. Watching her cry because her aunt didn't want her in the pictures broke my heart. Still, I can't help but wonder if I went too far by refusing to go. My husband supported me, but thinks maybe I could have just attended quietly to keep the peace. My parents are still icy with me, and Lila hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. I keep replaying it all in my head, wondering if there was a better way. For context, I didn't post anything publicly or badmouth Lila to anyone. I simply declined the invitation and told my parents I wouldn't attend out of principle. But now I'm being treated like I ruined her big day. Part of me feels guilty. Weddings are emotional, and I know Lila wanted everything perfect. Maybe she truly didn't realize how cruel it sounded. But another part of me thinks if no one ever tells her she's being awful, she'll just keep doing it. I grew up in a family where appearances mattered more than feelings. Lila has always been rewarded for prioritizing image over empathy, and this felt like history repeating itself. When I saw Emma's face after that conversation, I decided I wasn't going to play along this time. Now the fallout is huge. My parents keep saying family unity is more important than a petty argument. But I keep thinking, what kind of unity asks you to stay silent while your child is humiliated? So here I am, wondering if I'm the one who overreacted. Maybe I should have just swallowed my pride and gone for the sake of peace. But every time I think of my daughter being told she didn't fit the aesthetic, I know I couldn't sit in that room pretending everything was fine. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she uninvited my daughter from being her flower girl because of her hair color. AITA for not allowing my sister to bring her kids to my wedding because of their behavior. So, here's the situation. I, 28F, am getting married in a few months to my fiancé, Ben, 30M, and we've been planning this wedding for almost a year now. It's going to be a small affair, about 70 guests, and we've been working hard to make it as perfect as possible. Ben and I both come from fairly large families, so the guest list is a bit tight, but we're determined to only invite people we really want there. Here's where the problem comes in. My sister, Amanda, 34F, has 3 kids, Jake, 9M, Lila, 7F, and Ben, 5M. Now, I love my niece and nephews. I do. But there's a huge issue with their behavior, and it's something I've tried to address multiple times in the past. Amanda is aware of this, but she keeps insisting that it's just the way they are, and kids will be kids. To give you some context, Jake, the oldest, has always been a bit of a handful. He's extremely loud, disruptive, and often runs around without any regard for other people. Lila, while not as bad, is always trying to get attention, usually by interrupting conversations or trying to outdo everyone else. Ben, the youngest, is still in that age where he's constantly crying or throwing tantrums if he doesn't get his way. We've had multiple family gatherings where I've had to step in because their behavior was getting out of hand. At my last birthday party, Jake knocked over a cake. Lila screamed at the top of her lungs because she didn't want to sit down, and Ben started crying because I wouldn't let him eat a chocolate cake that wasn't for kids. Ben and I are both very easygoing people, but this was too much for us, and we both agreed that we didn't want a repeat of this at our wedding. A couple of weeks ago, I sat Amanda down and gently explained that due to the nature of our wedding being a formal event and the venue having strict noise regulations, I was asking that she not bring her kids. I told her that while I understood they were family, I was worried their behavior would cause a disruption during a moment that's meant to be special. I also told her that it wasn't an issue of not liking her kids. It was simply a matter of wanting the day to go smoothly. Amanda was immediately upset. She said I was being unreasonable and unfair by not allowing her to bring her kids. She told me that they were her family, and she didn't want to come without them. She also claimed that I was making her choose between her children and her relationship with me. I assured her that I wasn't trying to force her to choose, but that I was just asking for her to respect the kind of event we wanted to have. After a long conversation, Amanda said she'd think about it. A week later, she called me and told me she still wasn't going to come to the wedding if she couldn't bring the kids. She said it wasn't right for me to ban them from the event. At this point, I was starting to get frustrated. I reminded her that I wasn't trying to ban her kids. I was simply asking her to respect my wishes for the wedding. I also pointed out that she was already making the decision to not come, which I thought was a bit dramatic, especially since I had already offered her the option of coming alone or bringing a sitter for the kids. I then told her that if she couldn't respect my wishes, I would have to remove her from the guest list. This led to a huge argument, and she ended up hanging up on me. Since then, we've barely spoken, and she's been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about family who only care about their own perfect day and how some people think they can dictate who's part of their family and who isn't. Now, my mom, 55F, has gotten involved. She says I'm being too harsh and that Amanda is hurt by my decision, and I should just let the kids come so there's no drama. She thinks I should be more understanding, since Amanda is a single mom and the kids are a handful, but not malicious. She keeps telling me that family is everything, and I shouldn't be so rigid about the wedding. My dad, 58M, thinks I'm in the right, but says that maybe I should find a compromise, like letting Amanda bring one child at a time or having them leave early if they start acting out. But I don't really want to compromise on this. I don't want to worry about kids causing a scene during my vows, during the reception, or at any other point in the evening. I made it clear to Ben and all our other family members that we want to keep the event as peaceful and calm as possible. And I'm really not asking for much, just for people to respect our wishes. So, here I am, feeling like I'm caught in the middle of my family. I've always been close with Amanda, but I can't help feeling like she's being selfish in this situation. I understand that she wants to be there with her kids, but this is my wedding, and I don't think it's unreasonable to want a kid-free event. I'm seriously wondering if I've gone too far by standing firm on this. AITA for not letting my sister bring her kids to my wedding. AITA for taking my dad's side in a family argument. Even though it's caused a huge rift between me and my sister, I, 28M, come from a pretty traditional family, and things have always been relatively straightforward when it comes to the way we handle family matters. My dad, 52M, is a tough guy but fair, and my mom, 50F, is super supportive of everyone. My younger sister, Lily, 24F, and I were always pretty close growing up. But recently, things have gotten really tense between us over something that happened about 2 months ago, and I'm not sure if I'm the one in the wrong. So about 2 months ago, my dad was laid off from his job. He had been working for the same company for nearly 30 years, and he was hit hard by the news. He's always been the breadwinner, and this sudden change really shook him. My mom and dad both started making adjustments, cutting back on expenses, and looking at different options for how to handle the situation. My sister, who lives in another state, has always been more free-spirited and isn't the best at managing money. She's never been interested in hearing about our parents' financial matters and prefers to keep things light and breezy, which is fine. She's her own person. A few weeks after the layoff, my dad got a decent job offer, but it was in another city about 3 hours away. My mom and dad were considering moving, but they were still weighing their options. Meanwhile, Lily was planning a big birthday party for herself. It was meant to be a celebration of her getting a new promotion at her job, and she was super excited. This party was going to be huge, rented out venue, all the bells and whistles. So my dad mentioned the job offer to Lily one night when she called. He told her he was thinking of taking it, and she immediately got upset. She told him she didn't think it was a good idea because, in her words, this is going to ruin the family. She said she was concerned that moving would ruin their relationship with her and her boyfriend, and that it was selfish of them to consider it at all. My dad naturally got defensive. He said he wasn't making the decision for her, but for the future of the family as a whole. They argued back and forth, and the conversation ended with her hanging up on him. The following weekend, Lily came home for her birthday. The party was in full swing when she cornered my parents and started lecturing them about how their decision to move was causing unnecessary stress in the family. She even said that my dad was acting like he was throwing away everything for a stupid job, and that he should just retire and stop trying to be a hero. It was uncomfortable to watch. At this point, the atmosphere at the party had shifted from fun and celebratory to tense and awkward. I tried to step in and calm things down, but Lily wasn't having it. She turned on me, saying I was just as bad as my dad for supporting his decision. This was when I really started to feel the divide. I tried explaining to her that we weren't just thinking about the move in the context of her feelings, but in the broader sense of what it would mean for everyone. I pointed out that my dad had worked for decades, and this job was a huge opportunity for him, especially since he had been struggling with the uncertainty after the layoff. I told her she was being selfish for putting her party and her own emotions above the bigger picture. I told her that if my dad didn't take the job, we might be in a worse position financially. And I pointed out that our parents didn't owe her an explanation for their life choices. They weren't required to consult her on everything. She didn't take it well at all. She said I was siding with them over her, and that I was just like Dad, emotionally distant and out of touch. The rest of the night was full of awkward silences and glares. I ended up leaving early because I just couldn't handle the tension anymore. Now, things have been completely off between us. Lily has barely spoken to me since that night. She's called me a traitor for siding with our parents, and I'm still not sure how to fix things. She's gone as far as to tell me that she doesn't want to be a part of any family gatherings as long as I'm there. And I've been invited to a couple of family events without her, which feels incredibly awkward. I've tried reaching out, but she says she's done with me and doesn't want to talk right now. I'm heartbroken because up until this whole thing, we were really close. But now I feel like she's completely alienated me. I'm not sure what else I could have done. I get that she's upset, but I feel like she was being totally unreasonable. My parents' decision isn't just about them. It's about the future of our family. I don't think she sees it that way, and I'm wondering if maybe I should have been more empathetic to her feelings. So, Reddit, AITA for taking my dad's side in this? Should I have done something differently? I, 28F, have been best friends with Hannah, 28F, for over 15 years. We grew up together, went to the same high school, and even ended up at the same college. Our friendship has always been close, and I've always seen her as more of a sister than a friend. We've been through a lot together, and I've been there for her through some of her hardest moments. Hannah recently got engaged to Derek, 30M, and it's been a roller coaster. At first, I didn't think much of it. I knew they'd been dating for a couple of years, and from the outside, it seemed like a good relationship. But as I spent more time with them, I began to notice things that were concerning, things that I couldn't ignore. It started off small, little comments from Derek that fell off to me. He'd say things like, "Hannah, you always look tired. I don't know why you can't just rest more. You really need to take care of yourself." Or, "Why do you hang out with your friends so much? Shouldn't you want to spend time with me?" At first, I brushed it off, but then I noticed how often he would make these types of comments in front of me. It seemed like he was constantly undermining her, making her feel bad about herself and the things she enjoyed. Then it escalated. We were at a group dinner one night, and Derek made a joke about how Hannah's cooking was terrible and how she couldn't even make a decent salad. Hannah looked embarrassed, but she laughed it off, trying to play it off as a joke. But it wasn't a joke. He had been making these comments for a while, and it was starting to feel like he was intentionally trying to make her feel small. I started paying more attention and realized that it wasn't just the little comments. He had a tendency to control the situation in subtle ways. He'd often tell her where to sit, what to wear, and even who she could hang out with. It wasn't always overt, but it was always there, lurking underneath the surface. The thing that really set me off was when Hannah came to me one night, visibly upset. She told me that Derek had gotten angry because she'd gone out with me and some other friends for a girls' night without telling him first. She said that he had yelled at her when she came home, telling her that she should be spending all of her time with him now that they were engaged. She said he called her selfish and accused her of not caring about their future. Hannah looked like she was walking on eggshells around him. I tried to comfort her and tell her that she didn't deserve to be treated that way, but she kept making excuses for him. She said he was just stressed about the wedding planning and that he didn't mean it. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something seriously wrong here. Over the next few months, I started distancing myself from their relationship. Every time I spent time with them, I could feel the tension, and I hated seeing how Derek treated her. I tried to talk to Hannah about it a few times, but she always shut me down, telling me I was being dramatic and that I didn't understand how hard it was to plan a wedding. She told me I should be happy for her and support her decisions. Things came to a head when Hannah asked me to be her maid of honor. I've been her best friend for years, and I was honored that she wanted me to be in that role, but I just couldn't bring myself to say yes. I knew that if I said yes, I would be participating in something I didn't believe in. I couldn't support a wedding when I didn't believe Derek was a good person, let alone someone who should be marrying my best friend. I didn't want to stand up at that wedding and pretend everything was fine when I knew deep down that it wasn't. So, I told Hannah that I couldn't be her maid of honor. I told her I loved her and that I supported her as a person, but that I couldn't support her decision to marry Derek. I told her I thought Derek was emotionally abusive and that I was worried about her future with him. I said that I felt like I was losing the person I'd known for so many years, and it broke my heart. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to make her choose between him and me, but that I couldn't pretend to be okay with what I saw. She was furious. She started crying, telling me I was being selfish and that I was ruining her happiness. She said I was overreacting and that I didn't know Derek like she did. She accused me of being jealous of her relationship and said that I was just upset that she was moving on with her life. It felt like all the years of friendship we'd built were just thrown away in that moment. I tried to explain again, but she hung up on me. We haven't spoken since then, and it's been a few weeks. Her wedding is coming up, and she hasn't reached out to me at all, even though I've tried to send a few texts. I feel like I've lost my best friend, but at the same time, I know I couldn't live with myself if I had been complicit in her marriage to someone who I truly believe is toxic for her. I feel guilty. I love her. I want her to be happy, but I also feel like I've lost her forever. I don't know if I made the right decision, but I honestly couldn't stand by and watch her marry someone who I think is emotionally abusive. I don't know if I could ever forgive myself for that. AITA for refusing to support my best friend's wedding because I think her fiancé is abusive? Should I have just kept my mouth shut and supported her, even if I didn't agree with her choice? Or was I right to speak up? AITA for choosing not to attend my brother's wedding because of the way they treated my fiancé? So a bit of background. I, 29M, have a younger brother, Ethan, 25, who is getting married to his fiancée, Lauren, 24. They've been dating for about 3 years, and they recently got engaged. I've known Lauren since they started dating, and to be honest, I've never really gotten along with her. I've always found her to be a bit self-absorbed and sometimes even rude. But I never said anything to Ethan because it wasn't my place. I just kept my distance and tried to be polite when I saw her. Things started to get tense when my fiancée, Claire, 28, entered the picture. Claire and I have been together for 5 years, and we're planning on getting married next year. She's warm, caring, and honestly, just a great person. The first few times she met Lauren was friendly enough, but then she started making little passive-aggressive comments towards Claire. For example, she would say things like, "You have such a unique style. I mean, it's nice," or, "Oh, you're really into that?" I didn't think people still did that. It was always small things that Claire would brush off, but I could see how it was getting under her skin. I tried to talk to Ethan about it, but he brushed it off. "Lauren's just being Lauren," he would say. "She's not trying to be rude." But after a while, I noticed the comments started to escalate. One day, we were at a family gathering, and Lauren made a comment about how awkward Claire was when we were talking to some of the other guests. That was the last straw for me. I snapped at her, told her to cut it out, and that she needed to be more respectful to my fiancé. Ethan got mad at me and accused me of making a scene and causing drama. A few weeks later, Ethan called me and asked if I could come over and talk things through. I agreed, thinking maybe he'd finally understand where I was coming from. Instead, he told me that Lauren had been upset about the way I treated her at the party, and that if I couldn't apologize to her, I wasn't welcome at their wedding. He said it was important to him that everyone in the family got along, especially for the big day. He also hinted that it might be best for Claire not to attend either, given the tension between her and Lauren. I was taken aback. Ethan was essentially giving me an ultimatum: apologize to Lauren or miss out on being part of his wedding. I thought about it long and hard. On one hand, I knew it was important to Ethan, but on the other hand, I couldn't just pretend like everything was fine when I felt like Lauren had been consistently disrespectful towards Claire. I felt like Ethan was prioritizing Lauren's feelings over mine and Claire's, and that didn't sit right with me. After a lot of back and forth with Claire, I made the decision not to attend the wedding. I told Ethan that I wasn't going to apologize for standing up for my fiancé, and if that meant missing out on his wedding, then so be it. I explained that I wasn't going to put myself in a situation where I had to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I also told him that Claire and I wouldn't be attending, and he could think about that if he was really putting Lauren's comfort over our relationship. Ethan was furious when I told him. He called me selfish, said I was making a big deal out of nothing, and that I was ruining his special day. He also brought up how I was so focused on my own drama that I couldn't see how important this wedding was to him. He said I was trying to make everything about me, and that was why I was missing out. He even mentioned how my absence would hurt our parents, who were really excited about the wedding. My parents got involved too. They've been really disappointed in my decision and have said that I should just apologize to Lauren and get over it. They think I'm being too stubborn and that Ethan's wedding is more important than whatever issues I have with Lauren. They keep telling me that I'm creating unnecessary tension and that I should just be the bigger person. They also said that family is about supporting each other, and I shouldn't let a petty disagreement stop me from being part of such a big occasion. Now, I'm really torn. I feel like I'm standing my ground for my relationship with Claire, but at the same time, I don't want to ruin my relationship with my brother. I've been in his life for so long, and we've always been close. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like his priorities have shifted, and he's putting Lauren's feelings above mine and Claire's. And honestly, it makes me question if this is the kind of person I want in my life. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the way they treated my fiancé? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by showing up in a white dress? I'm 28, and I have a sister, Emily, who's 30. Growing up, we were always pretty close, but like a lot of siblings, we had our issues. Emily has always been a bit of a perfectionist, and she tends to expect things to go exactly how she imagines them. She's been planning her wedding for over a year now, and has always made it clear that she wants everything to be just right. Now, I don't want to come off as some kind of villain, but I've always felt that Emily has a tendency to be a bit overbearing when it comes to her special events. She's the type of person who will have multiple dress fittings and take forever picking out the smallest detail. She once spent a full hour choosing a tablecloth for a family dinner because it had to be perfect. I'm not exaggerating. I'm also someone who doesn't care much about traditional norms. I'm not super into wedding stuff in general, and I've always felt a bit resentful that Emily treats these things like they're life or death decisions. As we've gotten older, I've tried to distance myself from her wedding planning, not wanting to get involved in her over-the-top obsession. But things got messy when it came time for her to ask me to be a bridesmaid. Emily's wedding is this grand, fairy tale affair, with an insanely expensive venue and a bunch of fancy decorations. I wasn't initially thrilled when she asked me to be a bridesmaid because, frankly, I don't like being the center of attention. But she kept insisting, and I eventually agreed because she's my sister, and I wanted to be supportive. The thing is, I've always been an unconventional person. I don't like following tradition, and I've never been one for frilly dresses or stiff formalities. I'm more of a laid-back type of person, and that was always something that made me feel a bit out of place around Emily's world. But this time, I decided to make a stand. A couple of weeks before the wedding, Emily sent out the bridesmaid dress options. The dresses were gorgeous, no doubt, but they were also extremely formal and quite uncomfortable looking. I didn't want to wear something that made me feel like a glorified mannequin, so I mentioned to her casually that I didn't think I'd be comfortable in any of the dresses she'd picked out. I told her I'd prefer to wear something more my style, something less formal, but still appropriate for the occasion. She got really upset. She said I was being selfish and inconsiderate, that she had spent so much time picking out the perfect dresses for her bridesmaids, and that I needed to respect her vision for the wedding. She didn't want me to ruin her big day by drawing attention to myself. I told her I wasn't trying to steal the spotlight, but that I just didn't want to wear something I'd never wear again, let alone something I felt completely uncomfortable in. She didn't listen. After several tense conversations, I backed down and agreed to wear the dress, though I still wasn't happy about it. But the day before the wedding, I had an idea that seemed like it could solve everything. What if I wore a dress that was a little different but still white? I'd seen a few bridesmaid dresses that were light off-white or champagne, and I figured that could work. I could wear something white-ish without overshadowing the bride. So I bought a beautiful white dress that was simple, chic, and elegant, but still something I could wear again without feeling like I was trapped in a satin nightmare. I figured that if I kept the accessories simple and stayed in the background, no one would notice too much. After all, white was only supposed to be for the bride, right? It wasn't like it was her white dress. I showed up at the wedding with the dress on, feeling pretty confident about it. The ceremony went smoothly, everything looked gorgeous, and I tried to blend in. But when Emily saw me in that dress, she completely lost it. She started yelling at me in front of everyone, calling me selfish, rude, and disrespectful. I tried to explain that I hadn't meant to take attention away from her. My dress was soft white, and hers was pure white, but she wasn't hearing any of it. People were watching, and it got awkward really quickly. Emily's fiancé was trying to calm her down, but she just kept going off on me, calling me the worst bridesmaid in history. Her friends and other family members were uncomfortable, and I could tell they were all just waiting for the moment to be over. Finally, she demanded that I leave the venue. I was embarrassed, humiliated, and devastated. I had never seen her this angry, and it felt like she had just kicked me out of her life over a dress. I reluctantly left the wedding, knowing that I had just destroyed any chances of having a good relationship with her in the future. Afterward, my parents and some other relatives reached out to me, saying that Emily was in the wrong for making such a scene. They said that the dress wasn't even close to being the same as hers, and that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. But Emily hasn't talked to me since. My friends are divided. Some think I was right to stand my ground, that I shouldn't have to follow the rules of some arbitrary tradition just to make her happy. Others think I was out of line, and that I should have just worn the dress she picked out and not caused drama. I am genuinely torn. I don't want to lose my sister over a stupid dress, but I also don't think I should have to give up my own style and comfort just to please her. So, Reddit, AITA? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she lied about me ruining her wedding? So here's the deal. I, 29F, have a sister, Rachel, 32F, who is getting married in a few weeks. To give you some background, Rachel and I have never been super close. We've always had a bit of a rocky relationship, mainly because of the way our parents raised us. I was always the quieter, more reserved one, while Rachel was the golden child. She got a lot of attention for being outgoing, and I often felt like I was ignored or even blamed for things that weren't my fault. But we still talked and tried to maintain a civil relationship, especially after I moved out and started living on my own. Now, Rachel's wedding has been a huge deal. She's been planning it for months, and my parents have been all in, helping her with every detail. But for me, things have been a bit more complicated. I was asked to be one of her bridesmaids, and though I agreed, I wasn't exactly thrilled about it. We have different tastes, and I didn't feel like I was a priority in her wedding planning. I've never really been her go-to person for emotional support, and she's always leaned more on our parents for that. About a month ago, Rachel asked me if I would be willing to cover some of her wedding costs, specifically for a bridal shower. She explained that she was running out of money and needed help. I said I could pitch in a little, but I was really clear that I had a budget and didn't want to go over it. I'm not exactly rich, and with all the other expenses in my life, I couldn't afford to drop a ton of cash on her wedding. She was fine with it, or so I thought. Fast forward to last weekend, and it's time for the bridal shower. Rachel asked me to help with some of the final details, like picking up a few things from the store and setting up the venue. I agreed, thinking it was just a small favor to help out, and I didn't mind. Now, this is where things get messy. I spent hours at the store picking up last-minute items she had asked for, and then I helped set up the venue the night before the shower. I thought everything was fine, but I started noticing little things weren't quite right. Rachel seemed frustrated with me for some reason. She kept pointing out small mistakes, like that I hadn't put enough flowers on one of the tables, or that I didn't arrange the seating properly. I tried my best to follow her instructions, but it felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. When the day of the bridal shower arrived, I was exhausted but still determined to help make it a success. However, during the event, Rachel started acting distant. She barely spoke to me and spent most of her time talking to her friends and our parents. Every time I tried to offer help or check in with her, she brushed me off. It felt like I was invisible, which was nothing new, but it stung more this time because I had really tried to be there for her. At one point, I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I overheard Rachel talking to one of her friends. She was complaining about how unhelpful I had been with the shower. She was telling her friend that I had ruined the event by not following her instructions properly, and that I had made everything harder. She was dramatic about it, saying she had to redo a lot of things because I couldn't be trusted to do anything right. Now, I'm not perfect, but I know I did my best. Sure, I made a few mistakes here and there, but it wasn't like I had ruined the whole day. There were a few things I could have done differently, but no one had said anything to me about it during the event. Instead, I overheard her blaming me behind my back, and it really upset me. I went back to the party, and when Rachel came over to ask me something, I confronted her. I told her I had overheard her conversation and that I felt really hurt by the things she had said about me. She got defensive, of course, and insisted that I was being overly sensitive. She said I should just let it go because it wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't back down. I told her that I was tired of always being the one who was expected to just suck it up when she treated me poorly. I reminded her that I had agreed to help her and had spent my time and energy trying to make her day special. I told her I was really disappointed in the way she had treated me and how she had gone behind my back to talk about me. Rachel started to cry and said that I was being dramatic, that it wasn't her fault that I was taking things so personally. I could tell she was trying to turn it into a bigger issue than it needed to be, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I told her I wasn't going to be part of her wedding anymore if she didn't at least acknowledge the way she had treated me. I said I didn't feel appreciated and that I wasn't going to keep putting myself in situations where I wasn't valued. She got really upset and started yelling, accusing me of ruining her wedding and making everything about me. At that point, I just walked away. I didn't want to argue anymore, and I felt like the situation was beyond saving. Now, a few days later, I'm getting bombarded with messages from our parents and relatives. They're all telling me I should apologize to Rachel and that I've taken things too far. They say that it's just a wedding and I should let it go for the sake of family harmony. But I feel like if I apologize, I'm just enabling her behavior and that I'm not being treated fairly. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister after she lied about me, ruining her wedding. AITA for letting my sister-in-law stay with us rent-free for months, only to kick her out when she started demanding a full room and trying to take over my house. So, here's the situation. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Ben, 34M, for 5 years. We don't have kids yet, but we've been trying for a while, and things are starting to get a little stressful. About 8 months ago, my sister-in-law, Laura, 28F, found herself in a really tough spot. She was going through a messy divorce, lost her job, and was basically stranded in a city she couldn't afford. Her lease was up, and she didn't have anywhere to go. Ben and I live in a house that's big enough for the two of us, and I agreed to let Laura stay with us temporarily while she got back on her feet. I'm a people pleaser, and I tend to be overly accommodating. I figured it'd only be a few weeks at most, maybe a couple of months, until Laura found a new job and place to live. Ben was a little more hesitant, but didn't outright object. He said he trusted my judgment and that we'd have a conversation if things started getting uncomfortable. So Laura moved in. At first, everything was fine. She was grateful, quiet, kept to herself for the most part, and didn't make any demands. I tried to make her feel as comfortable as possible by giving her space and treating her like a guest. We set clear boundaries. We told her that we expected her to help out with the groceries and pay a small rent once she was financially stable. But after about 2 months, it became clear that Laura wasn't planning on finding a job anytime soon. Every time I asked her about job applications or interviews, she'd get defensive, saying she was too overwhelmed to focus on work right now and needed a break. It didn't sit well with me, but I didn't want to pressure her too much, so I let it slide. Then, things started getting weird. After a couple more months, she began asking for more and more. At first, it was just minor things like me cooking her favorite meals or cleaning her room because she just couldn't deal with it that day. But then she started suggesting she should have the guest room as her permanent space because it's just so much more comfortable than the small room she was staying in. I was annoyed, but I didn't say anything. The guest room is smaller than our bedroom, but it's still a nice space, and I felt like I'd already been accommodating enough. Then it escalated. One evening, after we had dinner, Laura casually mentioned that she wanted to make the guest room her own and would need to get a few things for it. When I told her that we had planned to use the guest room for when we have visitors, which we do pretty frequently, she laughed and said, "Well, you and Ben don't have kids yet, right? So you won't need it for a while." That felt really dismissive. I pointed out that we've had friends and family stay with us before and would likely do so again, but she just shrugged and said it wouldn't be a big deal to move things around. I could feel my patience running thin. A few weeks later, she came to me and said that she was so sorry for asking, but she had been feeling really stressed by the situation. She told me she didn't feel like the house was really hers and wanted to take more control over the space. She said that she'd been thinking a lot about it and had decided that if she was going to stay with us, she should have a full bedroom instead of sharing one of the smaller rooms with the laundry. I told her that the laundry room is our only extra space and we needed it for laundry and that we still wanted her to pay rent once she was able. She said she wasn't ready to start paying rent yet, but she would help out more around the house. At this point, I started feeling really uncomfortable. It was becoming clear that Laura wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon, and she seemed to think that because we were letting her stay, she could make demands about our living arrangements. But I didn't want to cause a fight, so I kept trying to make compromises. But then came the last straw. A few weeks ago, Laura started getting more insistent about moving into the guest room. I told her again that it wasn't going to happen, especially since she had never paid a single cent for rent, and her help around the house consisted mostly of occasionally putting her dishes in the sink. It felt like she was taking advantage of our kindness. Ben and I had a serious talk about it, and he agreed that she was crossing lines, but he didn't want to kick her out in the middle of her divorce and joblessness. I understood where he was coming from, but at the same time, I felt like my patience was running out. I was tired of being the one to bend over backward while Laura made unreasonable requests. A few days ago, after Laura again asked about the guest room, I snapped. I told her she needed to start looking for a place of her own and that she couldn't stay indefinitely. She got really upset and accused me of being heartless and unsupportive when she was going through a tough time. She said she felt like I was punishing her for not being able to get her life together right away. She said I'd been so nice at first, and now I was just being cold and selfish. She left the house, and it's been a few days now. Ben is upset with me. He says I should have been more understanding and that I should have let her stay a little longer until she found something. He told me I was being too harsh and should have tried harder to make her feel more welcome. I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm not a hotel. I've done everything I could to help her, and it just didn't feel right anymore. So, AITA for kicking my sister-in-law out when she started demanding more and more from us, even though I'd let her stay rent-free for months. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because she disinvited my girlfriend. So here's the deal. I'm 29M, and my sister, 27F, is getting married in a few months. It's a big deal for my family, especially since it's the first major wedding since I can remember. My sister and I have always had a pretty close relationship growing up, but recently things have been tense between us. We've always been different in terms of personality, but we've never really had any major fights until now. I've been dating my girlfriend, 26F, for about a year. She's amazing, and we get along really well. We've had some bumps in the road like any couple, but overall, it's been a really happy relationship. My family likes her, and she gets along with my parents, even though they're a bit traditional, and she's, well, not. I'm very close to my parents, and they've been supportive of my relationship. My sister, on the other hand, has made it clear that she doesn't quite like my girlfriend. It's not that she's ever said anything outright mean, but I've caught her making passive-aggressive comments. Things like, I don't get why you're with her, she's so different from us, or, I hope she doesn't try to take the spotlight at the wedding. I didn't think much of it at first, because it seemed like a family thing. Sisters don't always get along, right? But then, the issue came to a head when my sister was planning her wedding guest list. She originally invited my girlfriend, which I thought was a nice gesture. But a couple of weeks ago, she pulled me aside and said she needed to talk to me about something. She told me that she didn't want my girlfriend at the wedding because she was too much of a distraction. She said that my girlfriend's loud personality would make the event feel less formal, and that she thought it would take away from the vibe of the celebration. At first, I was shocked. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She went on to say that she wanted to keep the wedding elegant and classy, and that my girlfriend's edginess didn't fit with that. I tried to reason with her, telling her that my girlfriend was a lovely person, that she respected the family, and that it wasn't fair to judge her like that. My sister stood her ground, though, and said she had already made up her mind. I'll be honest, I was hurt. I've always been there for my sister, and I couldn't understand why she would do this. I told her that if my girlfriend wasn't invited, I wasn't going to come either. That's when things really blew up. My sister started crying, telling me that I was being dramatic and that I should understand why she was doing this. She said I was being selfish by putting my relationship above her special day. I told her that I wasn't trying to make her day about me, but that it wasn't fair for her to single out my girlfriend like that. The whole conversation ended with her basically telling me that if I couldn't get over it, I could choose between her wedding and my girlfriend. I walked away from the conversation feeling like she was being unreasonable. I spent a few days thinking it over, and eventually, I decided that I wasn't going to attend if my girlfriend wasn't invited. I texted my sister to let her know that I wouldn't be coming to the wedding unless my girlfriend was included. She got even angrier, saying that I was ruining her big day and making it all about me. Here's where I might be the asshole. I haven't backed down. I told her I wasn't paying for any part of her wedding either if she was going to treat my girlfriend like this. I'm not rich by any means, but I had planned on contributing to the wedding costs, helping with the reception, and maybe even paying for the bridesmaids' dresses. Now my parents are involved, and they're telling me that I'm being petty and that family comes first. They say that I should just go to the wedding and let it go for one day, but I don't feel like that's right. I don't think my girlfriend should be treated as an afterthought or judged based on assumptions. My sister hasn't apologized, and I'm feeling like this whole thing is making me choose between family and my relationship. I've had a few people tell me I should let it go and just go to the wedding, but I feel like if I do that, I'll be enabling her behavior. I'm sticking to my guns because I don't think I'm being unreasonable here, but now the entire family is upset with me, including extended relatives who've been calling and texting me. So, AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding and not paying for it unless my girlfriend is invited. AITA for refusing to give up my seat at my family's dinner table for my sister-in-law, even though it's tradition. I, 30F, am married to my husband, Tom, 32M, and we've been together for about 6 years. He has a big, close-knit family. The kind of family that has an almost sacred tradition of gatherings, holiday dinners, and events. They value family time above almost everything, and that's something I've learned to appreciate over the years. But there's this one tradition that has been driving me crazy for the last couple of years, and it came to a head last week at a family dinner, which is what brings me here. Let me explain the situation. In my husband's family, there's this long-standing tradition where the oldest male in the household sits at the head of the dinner table, followed by his wife, and then the rest of the family fills in around them. The issue is my sister-in-law, Laura, 35F, has decided that this tradition should apply to her too. Laura and my brother-in-law, Jake, 37M, have been married for about 5 years, and while I like Jake, I really can't stand Laura. I'll be honest, my relationship with Laura has always been strained. She's the type of person who expects special treatment, but never really earns it. She's always inserting herself into situations that don't involve her, and there's a subtle air of superiority about her. It's not the kind of behavior I normally tolerate, but I've been trying to keep the peace because I don't want to make things awkward for Tom, who really values family harmony. However, about 2 years ago, Laura started to act like she belonged at the head of the table alongside her husband, just like the oldest male, my father-in-law, and his wife. I didn't mind at first because I thought it was just her making an attempt to be a little more involved, but things quickly spiraled. Last year, she basically demanded that she be given the seat next to the oldest male, my father-in-law, at every family dinner. She argued that since she was married to Jake, she should be treated as the matriarch of the family, which was a term she used frequently to describe herself. At first, I didn't want to cause drama, so I let her sit there, but over time, it started to bother me. Her self-appointed position at the table made me feel like I was being pushed out of a space that had always been mine. I'm married to Tom, and even though I'm not the oldest female in the family, Tom's mom is, it still felt like my place at the table was being undermined. To make matters worse, whenever she sat at the head, she would take charge of the conversation, interrupt people, and talk over my father-in-law, which was disrespectful in my eyes. My father-in-law is a quiet, reserved man who enjoys listening to others, but Laura would make sure she was the center of attention. This issue came to a head last week when we had a big family dinner for Tom's birthday. I knew that Laura would pull her usual stunt and try to claim the head seat, but I decided this time I wasn't going to let it slide. I had spoken to Tom about it before, but he dismissed my concerns, saying that it was just Laura being Laura and that I should let it go. However, when we arrived at the dinner, I could see Laura already eyeing the head of the table, and that was the last straw for me. I made the decision that I wasn't going to give up my seat, and I politely but firmly told Laura that I would be sitting at the head of the table. She immediately went on the defensive and argued that I was overreacting and that this tradition had always been in place for the spouses of the oldest male. She told me that it was disrespectful for me to challenge tradition and that I was making things uncomfortable for everyone. The tension in the room was palpable, and my mother-in-law, who usually stays quiet, asked me to just let it go for the sake of family peace. I refused, saying that I wasn't going to let her overstep her boundaries. This turned into a full-blown argument, with several members of the family weighing in. Some agreed with me, saying that Laura had been getting a little too entitled, while others sided with her, arguing that I was being selfish and ruining the family tradition. At one point, Laura started crying, saying that I was being rude and selfish, which really frustrated me because I knew she was just trying to manipulate the situation. Eventually, my father-in-law stepped in and said that he would sit at the head of the table, as it was always his seat, but Laura still gave me an icy glare the rest of the evening. After the dinner, Tom and I had a huge argument. He told me that I had caused unnecessary drama and that I should have just let it go for the sake of everyone's peace of mind. I told him that I wasn't willing to let Laura continue her entitled behavior and that I'd had enough of her disrespecting my position in the family. Now, the rest of the family is divided. Some say I did the right thing by standing my ground, while others think I should have just let it go to avoid conflict. Tom is still upset with me and says that I've made the family situation more tense than it needed to be. He's asking me to apologize to Laura and smooth things over, but I feel like I didn't do anything wrong. I don't want to be a doormat just to keep the peace, especially when Lara's behavior is so disrespectful. AITA for refusing to give up my seat at the family dinner table and causing this whole issue. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she accused me of stealing her spotlight. I, 28F, have an older sister, Emily, 32F. We've always had a somewhat complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who excelled at everything. I was the quieter one, not as outgoing or popular, but I was okay with it. Over the years, our relationship had its ups and downs, but we'd always managed to get along for the most part. That is, until recently. In the past few months, Emily has been planning her wedding. It's been a huge event for her, and she's been talking about it nonstop. I could tell she was stressed, and honestly, I try my best to be supportive. I help with things like picking out bridesmaids' dresses, picking out the venue, and even helping with her bridal shower. I wanted to be there for her and help her in any way that I could, even though I was feeling a little overwhelmed by the amount of attention the wedding was getting. It was all anyone could talk about in our family. A few weeks ago, I had a huge announcement of my own. My boyfriend of 3 years, we'll call him Jake, and I found out that I was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but we were both over the moon and excited. We didn't tell anyone right away, but eventually, we decided to share the news with our family. I thought Emily would be happy for me, but when I told her, her reaction was, well, not what I expected. She was visibly irritated. She didn't congratulate me at first, and when I asked her why she seemed upset, she told me it was because my pregnancy was ruining her big day. I was taken aback. I didn't know how to respond. I asked her what she meant, and she said that I was stealing her spotlight and that no one would care about her wedding if they were focused on my pregnancy. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept going on about how the timing was terrible. She said that now, all anyone would talk about at the wedding would be my pregnancy and the baby, and she couldn't have that. She even said I was being selfish for not considering her special day before getting pregnant. I tried to explain to her that I wasn't trying to overshadow her. I wasn't planning to make a big announcement at her wedding or even draw attention to myself. I just wanted to share the news with my family in a positive way. But she was having none of it. She demanded that I not bring up my pregnancy at all during the wedding weekend, and if I did, she would consider it a direct attack on her. To make matters worse, Emily insisted that I should pay for a portion of her wedding costs since I was ruining everything. She said it was only fair that I contribute financially to make up for the damage I'd caused by having a pregnancy that interfered with her day. I was completely blindsided. I thought it was incredibly unfair for her to expect me to pay for anything, let alone because of something that wasn't even intentional. I told her that I wasn't going to contribute financially, especially under those circumstances. I pointed out that my pregnancy was not an attack on her and that I had no intention of overshadowing her wedding in any way. I also reminded her that I'd been supportive of her planning and had gone out of my way to help her with everything, despite how stressful it was for me. That's when things got really heated. Emily started yelling at me, calling me selfish, inconsiderate, and a spotlight thief. She said that if I didn't pay my share, I wasn't really family and that I didn't care about her. She said I was making her wedding all about me and that I was acting like I was the only one who had something important going on in their life. I was hurt by everything she said, but I didn't want to let her manipulate me into paying for her wedding under duress. I ended up walking out of the conversation, and we haven't spoken much since. I still can't believe how she acted, and I feel like she's being unreasonable. Here's where I need advice. I've been getting messages from other family members telling me I need to make amends with Emily because family is everything, and I need to be there for her, especially on her wedding day. Some have even suggested that I should just pay my portion of the wedding expenses to avoid further conflict. I feel like I'm being gaslighted into doing something I don't want to do. I want to be a good sister, but I don't think I should have to pay for her wedding just because she's throwing a tantrum about my pregnancy. AITA for refusing to pay and standing my ground. I don't want to be seen as the villain, but I also don't think it's fair for her to expect me to sacrifice for her big day, especially when I've done nothing wrong. AITA for making my sister feel like an outsider at my wedding after her behavior at the rehearsal dinner. So, this is a bit of a complicated situation, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong or if she's completely out of line. I, 28F, recently got married, and the wedding planning process was, as you can imagine, pretty stressful. One of the people I've had the most tension with during the whole thing is my older sister, Vanessa, 31F. We've always had a somewhat strained relationship, but things really escalated when I started planning my wedding. The issue began early on when I picked my bridal party. I have a group of 5 close friends who I've known since high school, and I was going to have my sister as my maid of honor. We've had our ups and downs, but I thought it would be a good gesture to include her in a major role in my wedding. However, Vanessa wasn't happy about that decision. She told me, very bluntly, that she didn't want to be maid of honor because she didn't think I was worthy of the role and that she would rather just be a guest. I was a bit shocked by her reaction, but I respected her wishes and gave the maid of honor title to my childhood best friend, Karen. Vanessa's behavior became increasingly weird after that. She told me multiple times that she wasn't in the mood for a wedding, that it was all too much, and she just didn't feel like being involved. Despite this, I still made an effort to include her in as much of the planning as I could. I invited her to dress fittings, let her help pick some of the decor, and even asked for her opinion on the wedding cake. She reluctantly participated but acted very distant throughout it all. Fast forward to the rehearsal dinner. This is where everything went down. We had a fairly intimate dinner at a local restaurant for family and close friends. The night was supposed to be about celebrating, enjoying each other's company, and going over the final details for the big day. However, my sister showed up in an incredibly bad mood. She had been acting distant all day, and she didn't really interact with anyone except my mom. When I approached her to see if everything was okay, she made a sarcastic remark about how nobody cared what she thought anyway, and that the whole wedding was just a circus. I was taken aback, especially considering she had been one of the people I thought would be supporting me most through this process. The dinner itself was going fine until my aunt, who was sitting next to my sister, commented on how beautiful the wedding was shaping up to be. My aunt mentioned how much she loved my wedding dress, and Vanessa immediately rolled her eyes, making a loud comment about how basic it looked and how it wasn't really her style. I tried to brush it off, but it wasn't the first negative comment she'd made that evening. She had also criticized my table arrangements, the color scheme, and even the food selection. At one point, she looked at me, dead in the eyes, and asked if I was sure I knew what I was doing. I'm no bridezilla, but by this point I was getting frustrated. I asked her if she was okay or if something had happened, and that's when she snapped. Vanessa told me, in front of everyone, that she was tired of playing second fiddle to everything in my life. She said that since I got engaged, I had been completely obsessed with the wedding and had pushed everyone else aside. She said I was selfish for expecting her to just sit there and smile while I turned the event into something that was more about me than about my family. This was honestly the first time I had heard her say anything like this, and I was blindsided. I tried to keep it together and said that if she felt that way, she didn't have to be part of the wedding, but I also told her that the way she was acting wasn't fair to me, especially not at my rehearsal dinner. My mom jumped in at that point, trying to calm things down, but Vanessa just stormed off, leaving the dinner early. I felt humiliated, especially with so many people there. My aunt and some of my cousins were clearly uncomfortable, and the whole mood of the dinner shifted. I ended up having to apologize to everyone, and my mom kept saying that I needed to make up with Vanessa because she was family. But here's where I need to ask if I'm in the wrong. The next day, I spoke to my sister, and we had a long conversation about her behavior. She told me that I was too caught up in my own wedding and that I needed to be more considerate of her feelings. She even suggested I shouldn't have gotten married if I wasn't prepared to sacrifice some of my happiness for the sake of my family. I told her that I didn't think I was being selfish. I was just trying to have a happy day with the people I love. I asked her why she couldn't just be happy for me, but she insisted that she felt unimportant and ignored. She said I had turned the wedding into a spectacle, and it wasn't something she was comfortable being a part of. To be honest, I started questioning myself a bit. I love my sister, and I wanted her to be a part of my day, but she made it seem like I had completely alienated her. But at the same time, I feel like she went way too far with her comments and behavior, especially at the rehearsal dinner. On the actual wedding day, I ended up giving her a smaller role. She wasn't part of the bridal party, but she gave a speech at the reception, which I thought was fair. I still tried to include her in everything, but there was definitely tension throughout the day. I could tell she wasn't happy, but she kept it together for the most part. So, AITA for making my sister feel like an outsider? I know I've been busy with wedding planning, but I genuinely tried to involve her. Was I wrong to not just let her act like nothing happened? Should I have made more of an effort to make things right after the rehearsal dinner? Or is she just being unreasonable? I just need some perspective because I'm honestly torn. My wedding day was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, and now I feel like it's overshadowed by family drama. I really don't know where the line is between being supportive of her and just putting my foot down. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because of how she treated me during my engagement. I, 29F, have been best friends with Anna, 28F, since we were kids. We did everything together, and I considered her to be my closest friend. Over the years, our friendship has gone through ups and downs, but we always managed to work things out because we had so much history together. I thought we'd be each other's maid of honor when we got married, no question. Last year, I got engaged to my boyfriend, James, 30M, who I've been dating for 4 years. It was a happy moment, and I couldn't wait to share the news with everyone, especially Anna. She was genuinely excited for me when I told her, or at least I thought she was. At first, everything seemed great, but that changed pretty quickly. Anna and I had always talked about weddings over the years, what we would want, what we'd do differently, etc. But the closer it got to my engagement, the more distant Anna seemed. She wasn't showing much excitement for me, and when I told her I was starting to look at venues, she acted strange. She barely offered any advice or support, even though she had been my go-to person for everything in the past. One day, I was telling her about the venue I'd booked for the ceremony, and instead of being happy for me, she just said, "Well, I hope you're not overpaying for it." I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed about her own life or something. But the weird comments kept coming. She would make snide remarks about my wedding plans like, "Oh, I bet you're spending a ton of money on that dress," or "a fall wedding." So basic. But what really hurt was when she said, "I don't know how I feel about you spending all this money on a wedding when the two of you are barely even stable financially." I was shocked. At the time, James and I were both working hard, and we had enough savings to cover everything without going into debt. It felt like a personal attack. Anna had no right to comment on our financial situation. As the months passed, things didn't improve. She barely responded to my texts or calls about wedding plans, and when she did, it felt forced. We had talked about her being my maid of honor years ago, but when I officially asked her, her response was lukewarm at best. She just said, "I guess I can do it, but I might be really busy with work and stuff." At that point, I began to feel really hurt and confused. My wedding was important to me, and I wanted her to be as excited as I was. I tried to talk to her about it, but every time I brought it up, she'd brush it off and say I was overreacting. "It's not a big deal. I just don't get what all the fuss is about," she told me. Finally, about 2 months before the wedding, I found out that Anna had secretly planned her own wedding for the same month as mine. I was completely blindsided. She hadn't even mentioned it to me, and the first I knew of it was when a mutual friend told me that Anna had been showing off her engagement ring at a party. I was angry and hurt that she'd gone behind my back and essentially stolen my spotlight, but the real gut punch came when I found out that she was planning to have her wedding just a week after mine. I tried confronting her about it, and her response was, "Well, I didn't want to wait. I'm getting married too, you know." She acted like I was being selfish for even bringing it up, and she said, "It's not like we're competing for attention." But to me, it felt like she had completely disregarded my feelings. It wasn't about competing for attention. It was about my best friend being so wrapped up in her own life that she couldn't even give me the courtesy of planning her wedding for a different time. The next few weeks were awful. Anna continued to be distant, and every time I tried to talk to her, she shut me down. I started to feel like my wedding was becoming all about her, and that's when I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I told her that I couldn't be part of her wedding or attend, and I couldn't be her maid of honor. Anna was furious. She accused me of being selfish and dramatic, and said I was trying to make everything about me. She said she would never have planned her wedding around mine if I had just been a better friend and been more understanding. She ended up having another friend of hers, Sarah, step in as maid of honor, and their wedding went ahead as planned. Since then, our friendship has completely deteriorated. She stopped talking to me altogether, and I feel like I've lost the person I thought was my best friend. At first, I was devastated, but now I'm just angry. I never imagined she would treat me this way, especially over something that should have been a joyful occasion for both of us. So now I'm left wondering, am I the asshole for cutting her out of my life over this? Maybe I should have tried harder to understand her perspective, but I can't shake the feeling that she was being incredibly selfish and manipulative. I've always been there for her, but when I needed her most, she wasn't there for me. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding and cutting ties after all of this. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she made a decision that hurt me deeply. I've been best friends with Maya for over 15 years. We've been through everything together. High school drama, family issues, bad breakups, and good breakups, weddings, births, you name it. Our friendship has always been solid, and we're super close. Or at least, I thought we were. Maya got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Tom. At first, I was so happy for her. Tom's a great guy. They seem really in love, and I genuinely believe that their relationship was the real deal. In fact, I was the one who introduced them to each other years ago, so I felt a sense of pride seeing them get engaged. I thought they would be my first real couple goals. Things started to take a weird turn a few months ago when Maya started planning her wedding. Don't get me wrong, I know planning a wedding is stressful, but some of the decisions she made really threw me off. It wasn't just the typical bridezilla stuff, it was more personal, and it made me question how much she actually valued our friendship. One of the first things that happened was that she asked me to be a bridesmaid, which I was honored by at first. But then came the conditions. Maya asked that I not bring my boyfriend, James, to the wedding. When I asked why, she said it was because she didn't want her wedding to be too crowded, and she was trying to keep the guest list under control. I initially thought this was a misunderstanding, so I let it go. But then she brought it up again in front of our friend group, and it became clear that she didn't want any of us bringing plus ones, period. I understood the guest list being tight, but this felt a little off. Maya had known James for a few years and always got along with him. She had even joked about us getting married before. So why the sudden change? I asked her about it privately, and she hesitated before admitting that it was because she didn't want her wedding to be a distraction and didn't feel like anyone's partners should be there unless they were officially married or engaged. I didn't know what to say. I was already taken aback by how this felt like a direct dig at my relationship with James, which had been going strong for 3 years at the time. But I let it slide, hoping things would get better. It didn't stop there. As the months went on, I started noticing how much Maya was prioritizing other people over me. A mutual friend, Sarah, was getting more attention than I was. Sarah was in a similar situation as me. She had a boyfriend who she was serious about, but she seemed to get more leeway with Maya's rules. Maya even asked her to be a maid of honor, even though Sarah and Maya had only been close for a few years. At first, I didn't think much of it, but the more I thought about it, the more it stung. Fast forward a couple of months, and the wedding day is approaching. I've been to all the bridal showers, bachelorette parties, and meetings with the wedding planner. I've done everything I was supposed to do as a bridesmaid. But then, 2 weeks before the wedding, Maya sends me a text. It was a long message, and after reading it, I felt like I'd been slapped in the face. She told me that she had been thinking a lot about her wedding and had made some tough decisions about who she wanted to be part of her day. To my shock, she told me she was uninviting me as a bridesmaid. She said that she didn't want any negativity on her big day and that my attitude towards her decisions had been weighing on her. She went on to say that she wanted a positive and happy atmosphere and didn't think I could contribute to that, given that I had expressed so many reservations about the wedding. She didn't even give me a chance to explain myself. She made it sound like I had been nothing but a burden. The text was a gut punch. I'd been nothing but supportive, and now she was telling me I wasn't good enough to be there on her special day. She asked if I could still attend as a guest, but that was honestly the last thing I wanted to do. Why would I want to go to a wedding where I wasn't even considered important enough to stand by her side? I spent the entire day crying. I called James, and he didn't even know what to say. He could tell I was devastated, and so he suggested we just cancel our plans and take a step back from everything. I didn't want to burn bridges, but I couldn't just pretend like everything was okay. The next few days were a blur. Maya tried reaching out, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to her. I felt betrayed, unimportant, and like our years of friendship meant nothing. It wasn't even about the wedding at that point. It was about how she treated me over the course of the planning. I realized that if she was going to cut me out so easily, then maybe I didn't need her in my life anymore. Eventually, the day of the wedding arrived. Maya texted me again, asking if I was coming and reminding me that I was still invited as a guest. I didn't reply. In the end, I stayed home. I couldn't bring myself to be there. I felt like she had already made it clear that she didn't want me there in the way that mattered. The fallout from that decision has been complicated. Some of our mutual friends, including Sarah, have reached out to me saying I should have just gone and supported her. They think I overreacted and that I should have just accepted her decision, even though they admit that it was a strange thing to uninvite me as a bridesmaid. Maya hasn't reached out to me directly since the wedding, but a few people from our group have made it clear that she's hurt by my decision and that she's not sure if our friendship can continue. So now, I'm left wondering, AITA for deciding not to attend my best friend's wedding after everything she did? Should I have just let it go and been there for her? Or was I justified in taking a step back from the whole situation? I'm genuinely torn because I've lost a friend that I thought I would have forever, but at the same time, I'm not sure I can get past how she treated me. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.